and I was interested in sharing maybe my opinion because I noticed when you were asking about or speaking about your podcast that you cherished people who truly say what they believe in.
I believe many of our viewers and listeners are highly interested since you are from Egypt. Why Egypt doesn't open the gates for civilians to take refuge in Egypt?
In Egypt, it is usually because, you know, in most cases, living expenses in Egypt are less than Europe. So they would afford to have like an apartment and live a normal life. And Egyptian people are, are welcoming to people who come as guests. So it is not, we don't feel weird if my neighbor in the next apartment were a foreigner, especially if he was from an Arab country.
When you speak about piracy in Europe, they immediately imagine Jack Sparrow and stuff like that.
Yes, of course. And the Caribbeans.
Caribbeans. But I know that issue is very serious
Of course.
in Africa at the entrance to Red Sea. So
Exactly.
can you tell us something about that and how
Well,
the governments are coping with that issue? Okay, hello everyone. Welcome back to another exciting episode of Peacemaker by Adnan Habul, the podcast where we explore the world of peace, diplomacy, and conflict resolution. I'm your host, Adnan Habul, and today we have an extraordinary guest joining us. Get ready for enlightening conversation where we sit down with the brilliant Jehad Behery, a distinguished political scientist and security expert from Cairo, Egypt. He says about himself the following that he is a political researcher with a global mindset who always tries to use critical and analytical thinking skill set, which always helps him
yeah,
uh, to constantly seek to see the whole picture from a global strategic perspective. So, Jehad, welcome and please say something
yeah.
more about yourself in your words.
Well, yeah, thank you for joining you, and I'm glad to be here. But first of all, I would like to, I would like to describe myself as a researcher, but I don't consider myself an expert. However, you may like some of my opinions or my insights about what's going on, and I hope it's useful for you and for your audience.
Okay.
Okay, if I would like to introduce myself, I'm a political researcher. I'm a specialized, and I had since an early age, even before I study my political science studies, um, I had like a care for international security and military history and so on. So when I started to study international relations, of course, global security with issues like maritime terrorism and global terrorism and piracy and such security issues are my main focus, where my main focus goes. So, of course, for me as Egyptian, I live in Egypt as part of the Arab world, and of course, the Palestinian case or the Palestinian issue was a major issue for us politically, and it had like strong roots in the political spectrum of everybody who's living in the MENA region, from the Atlantic Ocean until the Arabian Gulf. And I was interested in sharing maybe my opinion, because I noticed when you were asking about or speaking about your podcast that you cherished people who truly say what they believe in. That's what encouraged me to join you here today. And of course, with the same and the current situation, I had hoped that maybe my opinion, or when I must, be objective when I study something as a specialist. And there's a time when I will, say my own opinion, and it only represented me.
Mhm.
So to have the opportunity to be able to speak about both is such, such a relief. So I'm glad I can join you, and I hope we can discuss whatever you can tell me how are we going to go.
Okay, so shortly, we will first discuss about ongoing situation in Palestine. I believe many of our viewers and listeners are highly interested, since you are from Egypt. Why Egypt doesn't open the gates for civilians to take refuge in Egypt, while IDF is shelling even refugee camps and stuff like that.
Yes. Well, okay. First of all, the situation is a bit complex and not easy as I should, like open up and host those poor people into my country and be able to provide aid. But the situation is complex. Why? If we look at the beginning of the war in 1948, when the fighting started, a lot of the people moved, and when the state of Israel had been recognized officially by the whole world, but not by the Arab countries, um, they asked people to stay out of the area of the fighting or of the operational theaters in a military term. So there were a lot of Palestinian people who left Palestine, Arab Palestinians, and when they moved out, until today, Israel doesn't allow them to come back to their own land. So if you worked in the president of Egypt's shoes, or you sat in his office, I mean, if you look for this situation from his point of view, he now has an opportunity to give aid to people whom are in need. However, if he did so and he accepted these refugees in his country, this will mean that all the Palestinians in Gaza Strip, in Gaza, will be in Egypt, and now the Israelis will never accept them to or allow them to go back to their land.
Yeah,
So
I
they can easily annex the Gaza Strip.
I understand that, but uh, many scholars, many analysts, they actually say this is ultimate goal of Israeli defense force, to expel entire population to Sinai uh, Peninsula and leave Gaza empty. And in one of my analysis, I also mentioned construction of Ben Gurion channel
Hanan,
as
yeah.
as a kind of competitor to Suez canal channel. So, what do you think? Does it make sense, or it's far-fetched analysis?
Okay. Let me here think or express my own insight. when we speak about the, a parallel projects to the Suez Canal through Israel, we have two options. First option is the Ben Gurion channel, and of course, it is like they will make um, uh, a maritime corridor through the, the Gulf of Suez until the Mediterranean. This is what we are speaking about. And the second project that they will have a rail Saudi Arabia into Jordan and into Israel until the Mediterranean. Railway will be part of a bigger picture that started from maybe from the Emirates or from Oman until Israel. Both will have like a very high, like a mega cost because both are mega projects. They are not normal projects. They will have massive infrastructure cost, and of course, they will add time. If we compare the Ben Gurion Maritime Corridor to the Suez Canal, we will find it longer. So if a ship is going through the Suez Canal and it has to choose between the Suez Canal and the Ben Gurion Canal, still choose the Suez Canal.
Yes, but
However,
recently there was shipwreck actually. You remember a couple of months ago,
yes,
1 year ago.
Ever Given,
Yeah,
the ship Ever Given.
yes. So the traffic was jammed, and many companies have lost millions of dollars.
Of course, including the Suez Canal Authority and Egyptian companies.
Mhm.
It was like unprecedented accident, and of course, it had like a huge attention, a huge international attention, and of course, uh, international companies with the Suez Canal authorities work together to solve the whole situation.
Uh-huh. So you,
So I understand. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay, go ahead.
you also said you were interested in research about terrorism. If I would be, let's say, Piers Morgan, I would insist that you say, do you or do you not
Yes.
condemn Hamas as a terrorist organization? So,
Yeah.
what's your opinion about that?
Okay. If we try here to see the bigger picture,
I need your opinion.
um, yes. Okay. If I speak my opinion, I believe that the Palestinian people had been subjected to a lot of unjust uh, through the whole war. So the official situation in Egypt, they consider Hamas as a terrorist organization because they did terrorist actions against Egypt. So my but right now, uh, I I I'm here to try to be a peacemaker. So my opinion: do we want peace or do we want war? Is it a zero sum game that only one part has to win, or we can reach a settlement that can be a win-win situation? With Hamas, this is will never gonna happen. Why? Because Hamas, from its founding, they are concentrated about the liberation of the whole Palestinian land without anything for the Jews. However, if we look for the far right Israelis, they have the same idea. They want to expel all the Arabs out and all the land is ours. So in both sides, we have people mostly on the far right who are, look to the situation as a zero sum game. I win and you lose. However, the PLO has a different approach, and they are now the Palestinian Authority. from 1993, from the Oslo Accords, they are consistently, and right now they are still moving forward through peaceful settlements and strong coordinating with Israel. But when the war started, Israelis killed people in the West Bank and people from, I guess, Al Aqsa martyrs the fight against Israel because now it is one fight and it is for Palestine. So even if I condemn Hamas, I am here not condemning Hamas alone. I condemn both sides. I condemn the IDF when they bombard innocent civilians because I want peace. I want a peaceful settlement. I'm not a Palestinian to decide, but when I look to the whole situation, I don't like seeing people suffer from both sides. I would like to have peace. So if I would like to have peace, I must work to every soul on both sides. This is what I want. However, when we look to history, we have like a lot of fighting, a lot of bloodshed, and of course, this is not going to happen in a day or in 1 year to be able to reconcile and work together. On
Yeah.
point, and I am here trying to see the bigger picture. And of course, there is extremists in both sides, but I am sure and I'm well that will be people within both sides also who would like to have peace and those who can make it happen.
Mhm. You mentioned also agreement. Yeah, it envisaged the creation of two states. It's a Palestinian state and
Yes,
Israeli state.
exactly.
Uh, as I can see, Egypt is still sticking to that Camp David agreement. So
Of course.
you respect that, and you are not interfering. I mean, not you personally, but your country, and it's let's say good for Israel. But what's the feeling of civilians, of people on the streets? How do they feel about this conflict? Is there any upset, riots, or
Yes.
something?
No, there is no riots, but we are all upset. Of course, Palestine and Egypt are close regarding the borders and they are neighbors. So we sympathize with Palestinians, and when we see what happened in Gaza Strip, we don't like what's happening for people there. We in Egypt we're more than 1 million people, more than 100 million people. So we have a lot of opinions, but most of the people are, of course, are sympathizing with seeing civilians suffer, and we, of course, uh, I speak now about people opinions, not about the government opinions. People opinions are going towards Palestine. We wish if they can win. We wish if they can even liberate the whole Palestine. But this is just a wishful thinking. This is not going to happen. So, in order to make like take actionable something that can be actioned, that can go on the ground, and we can reach a settlement, this is where my opinion goes. That we have to protect every life there, a Palestinian civilian and an Israeli civilian, and hopefully we can work together. But regarding an old maybe and we can look to the conflict as its social roots. It has social roots because of ethnic different ethnicity, and of course there is different, you know, economic. We can't speak about economic justice because if you visit the Israeli settlements,
Mhm.
which Israeli citizens make their own settlements, inside the Arab zones, it will flourish. It's flourishing and it's more modern. However, you mentioned when we spoke about Gaza Strip that the Palestinians are living in refugee camps inside their own countries. So inside their own country, they are living in a refugee camp, which is of course are not a good way to live. People who describe Gaza Strip as an open air prison, they are not exaggerating. We are, as Egyptian people, sympathize, of course, a lot with the Palestinians.
Mhm. Yeah, to objective people, situation is quite clear about state of Palestinian population. But let's go back about Hamas.
Sure.
Yesterday, I'm going to read what I found on LinkedIn. It says
Sure.
Islamic Fatwa Council, non-governmental clerical body headquartered in Najaf, Iraq, issued a fatwa or religious edict last week condemning Hamas repression of Palestinians in Gaza. Have you heard about that?
Well, I didn't, I heard about it, but I didn't, have enough time to study or learn more about this council. However, it is a little bit weird because it is in Najaf, and Najaf, of course, in Iraq, is mostly a uh, Shiite. Most of the people are Shia, so I think maybe it is a little bit confusing because I expected them to be more pro-Iran, if you know what I mean.
Yes, but
However,
they claim that they put together Sunni and Shia. But
yes,
well, I checked actually. I'm also a researcher. I checked
I
actually
understand.
the origin. It's uh, origin of this post is in Utah, United States.
Yes,
This Islamic Fatwa Council. So I
it
don't
is.
know.
It is.
It's a
It
weird.
is very strange, of course. Yes, it is very strange. Maybe uh, it can be regarded as disinformation or maybe fake
Propaganda, you
news.
mean?
I can't know for sure. And regarding fake news, I come across a news where speaking about a Spanish soldier who was fighting with the IDF. This soldier, his ideology was a neo-Nazi. It was very strange because Nazis don't like Jews. So I tried to follow up with this news. It's supposed to be they copy it from a Spanish newspaper. I go to the Spanish newspaper, but I didn't find any such news.
Yeah.
So regarding such conflicts, we will have many many fake news, maybe from parts or parties outside the conflict zone. Maybe uh, if we can check to the origins, maybe we find people who unleash this fake news are not even Arabs or Jews or Israeli or Palestinians. Maybe they can be from any country. Maybe they are independent, or maybe they from the anonymous groups, the anonymous hackers groups, if you hear about them.
Yeah.
So we can't know for sure until now, but since the first minute I saw a news about a new Nazi soldier fighting with Israeli, this is absolutely fake, but I have to find out. So I followed the news to its source, to its claimed source, and I didn't find it. So maybe if we can together research about this subject, we can reach to something different, or we can find out who really unleashed this.
Yeah. We will go back to that topic about fake news and Nazis fighting on
Of
Israelis,
course.
But before that, maybe you know better than I do. What's the weight of fatwa? Because most of the countries are secular countries. Religion is
Of course.
private issue, of course, unless it's let's say Islamic State, like Islamic Republic of Iran
Exactly.
or some other countries. Um,
Yes.
but usually those two things don't interfere to each other. Let's say state should not interfere into religion should not interfere in state affairs. But what do you think, even if this is not fake news, what is the weight of fatwa today?
Okay. Let me try here to speak about my situation in Egypt, and how can I imagine it happen? Because of course I don't know exactly. Uh, we here in Egypt we have only one governmental body, which is the Fatwa House here in Egypt, and of course people who can become like imams or country, he has to be a graduate from Al Azhar University. It is part of Al Azhar Masjid. It is started to preach and to teach people how to become uh, like religious clerics. So Al Azhar has um, a strong presence in Egypt regarding, like, if we would say they are the clerics in the Islamic way in Egypt. So this is how they if they have, there is a situation that need fatwa. There is a fighting with another country. Can we fight it from an Islamic point of view or no? What is happening in Palestine? Is this what is Islam point of view about it? So top scholars in what is called the Supreme Council of Fatwa are the top. I don't know their exact number, but they are, of course, respectable uh, clerics with. They are, of course, having like their own what is equivalent of the PhD degree in in Islamic studies or in religious studies, and they, of course, uh, research and brainstorm the situation together until they reach a point of view. The problem here that similar governmental bodies are in Egypt, are in Morocco, are in Saudi Arabia, are in Kuwait, are in Iraq, are in Syria, and each individual state has its own fatwa council. So this fatwa to be coming from a non-governmental body, this may be, um, become something like it's not credible enough.
Mhm.
However, if we would like to go on the ground to see what is happening in the world, we will find groups, non-state actors, like ISIS had their own fatwa council. Other groups like Hezbollah in Lebanon, they work with other fatwa councils. So I don't know exactly about this fatwa council, if he's a non-governmental body, if it's credible or not, and if they take the same exact criteria for scholars to join and to be like, old people. They are not like a group of young sheikhs or shuyukh, young shuyukh or imams. But however, in the state or governmental fatwa council, they are of course well respected and well educated scholars. They are very old people, and it is not easy to go out and say, we found out what. They take their time. They take a lot of time to study this issue and give fatwa.
Mhm.
So this is for me, as someone who's out of the system, how I think this works, or how they usually declare how this works. I don't know from the inside, but I think this is the proper way to describe it as my English would, allow me.
Mhm. Yeah, actually, maybe they do exist, maybe they are legit, we don't know. Uh, anyway, it would be very interesting to talk to them uh, in my podcast. I would like to invite them if they are somehow in opportunity to watch and listen this podcast. I'm kindly inviting them to, you know, to have a conversation, to see what do they do, who they are, and maybe we can learn something. We should be very open-minded. But uh, at first glance,
Mm.
uh, somehow it's strange. As you said, uh, it's usually like a state institution, not NGO.
Yes, exactly.
It's not civic society. But anyway, any initiative that would lead to peaceful solution is more than welcome, because
Of course.
I can tell you as a war veteran, I'm sick of wars. That's why I started this Peacekeeper uh, podcast where we are actually looking for peace solutions, you know. But
Yes,
in
exactly.
order to reach peaceful solution, you have to explore what is conflict about. So I think we can make now a short break, and then we will come back
Sure.
in 5 minutes if it is fine.
Okay.
Okay,
Sure, it is fine.
okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
See you in 5 minutes. Okay,
Hello.
welcome back.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me now? It is better?
Yes, yes, it's much better because sound was
Very good.
uh, shaky. So
Yeah,
let's continue.
sure.
Uh, maybe I'm more experienced about conflict in Ukraine, and
Of course.
I don't know how much did you research that conflict, but my question for you is. Do you have in Egypt any refugees from Ukraine, and is it a large number?
No, I don't think we have large number. And if there is Ukrainian people in Egypt who come individually, you know, I
Mhm.
don't think like we have like a refugee camp for for Ukrainians. And I would like to mention here that there is a lot of people from Arab countries like Syria and Iraq and Palestine and Sudan who is living in Egypt. So usually when we accept refugees into our country in Egypt, it is usually because, in most cases, living expenses in Egypt are less than Europe. So they would afford to have like an apartment and live a normal life. And Egyptian people are, are welcoming to people who come as guests. So it is not, we don't feel weird if my neighbor in the next apartment were a foreigner, especially if he was from an Arab country. If he's a Sudanese or a Syrian or an Iraqi, it is common.
Yeah, I'm asking this because I'm also very active. I'm a senior program manager at international NGO, Stop Trafficking of People. And I'm highly interested in topic about trafficking in human beings. So, what's the situation in Egypt, especially among those refugees? Do you know anything about those networks of people who are trafficked, not only for sex exploitation, but primarily for sex exploitation, but also labor exploitation?
Yes.
Do you know anything?
Okay. Regarding transnational crime and especially human trafficking, Egypt is a transit country because of Egypt location. So usually we had, uh, especially during the years of 2011, after the uprising in Egypt, and uh, it had like maybe it had weakened the security measures that the police and the military used to do to make a border control. So from this time, I guess for 2 or 3 years, our borders wasn't controlled good enough. So there was a lot of human trafficking that goes through Egypt into Libya and from Libya to Europe. And in some cases, people started to do the refugee movement as, do you want to illegally immigrate to Europe? We can help you. So they pay a lot of money for those people. And then actually when they got into the boats, they found out they are being kidnapped. So they were paying to be kidnapped. Sorry, I had a phone call. I had to stop. So we had like, due to the geographical location, we were a transit countries, and at the this years were when we had like loose security measures, not so tight and not so strong. We had even gangs that did the same from Egypt. But when we speak about 2014, when we re-established control security-wise and military-wise, and we did much better border control, we reduced such movement. In the current situation, I don't know for a fact, but I think it is still, have smaller percentage maybe. This is what I think, but I don't know. I didn't research the topic. The last people we accepted as refugees were from Sudan. So Sudanese people, has very deep-rooted historical relations with Egyptians. Because if you read about the history of ancient Egypt, we were mixed together. And even in the modern times, in the early modern times, even, for the 1940s, we were a whole kingdom, one kingdom. So the king of Egypt was the king of both Egypt and Sudan. However, de facto, that Sudan was being ruled under the two crowns, the Egyptian crown and the British crown.
So de facto, the English had the last word, the British. But we had some sort of, a formal and executive. We used to send Egyptian uh, governmental employees and governmental executives to Sudan to work there. But they weren't, there were no strong presence of them or for actual, you know, uh, um, hard forces, or we can't influence something the hard way. But because of this, like, people from Egypt and Sudan, there's a lot of relatives, a lot of people who've been married from both sides. So it is a bit complex. So we can accept them easily, even without war, if they are not refugee. Some Sudanese people come to Egypt to work in Egypt, and some Egyptian people go to Sudan to work in Sudan. So especially with Sudan, Libya, and close borders with close neighboring countries, there is a lot always a relativity and the relative relations. Families are uh, engaged in marriages, and you maybe find in south of Egypt a family. Part of it are Sudanese citizens, and part of it are in the north are Egyptian citizens.
Mm.
Same with the west, with Libya.
When you mentioned Libya, I remember that conflict about gas found
Of course,
in Eastern Mediterranean, and
sure.
Libya and Turkey agreed. I mean, central authorities of Libya,
Yeah,
they accepted help from Turkish government. We know that each and every conflict is based on profit, actually.
of course, of a national interest.
Yeah, if you don't know the true reason, just follow the money. Money flow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Why did America invade Iraq? They say it is for freedom and for democracy, but actually it is for the oil.
They say it was democracy all about.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, American people have a lot of good values, have a lot of good intentions, but the administration that declared the war, they had multiple people who benefited from the wars, like Rumsfeld and other American people. I'm not gonna mention more names, but in each conflict, of course, there is interest. Egypt and Turkey are, geopolitical rivals. So it is the geography. If we take Egypt out of this spot and put Ethiopia instead of Egypt, it would have geopolitical rivalry with Turkey. If we take Turkey out and put maybe France would have a geopolitical uh, rivalry with Egypt. So I think, of course, it is a geopolitical rivalry, and Turkey is a member in the NATO. It is a strong country militarily. If we look in the Libyan case, inside Libya, we had Haftar, General Khalifa Haftar in the east, and of course uh, he was the National Libyan Army, with the National Libyan Army, the NLA, and the officially recognized government by the UN in the West, in Tripoli. Uh, so before they signed this agreement, Haftar controlled more than 70% of the country, and his forces was about to go into Tripoli, but they were ambushed, and the tides was drawn, and they, of course, got back. So, of course, Turkey helped the government in Libya, and Egypt backed Haftar because they thought that he can, you know, when he reach power, he can secure the Egyptian national interest.
Yeah, but also I heard that Wagner Group was involved,
Of
Russian
course, it was.
Wagner Group on Haftar side, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, that's
They are
actually
still,
happened.
they are still active in Africa. Uh, Unfortunately, I didn't travel to Africa, although I know a lot of people from Africa, including from Egypt. I know
Yeah,
some senior police officers who used
yeah,
to work with me in United Nations for many
yeah.
years. So now I will take opportunity to say hi to all my friends in Africa. But let's continue just briefly. You also mentioned piracy. Uh,
Yes,
when you speak about piracy in Europe, they immediately imagine Jack Sparrow and stuff like that.
yes, of course. And the Caribbeans,
Caribbeans, but I know that issue is very serious
of course.
uh, in Africa at the entrance to Red Sea. So
Exactly.
can you tell us something about that and
Well,
how the governments are coping with that issue?
okay. I can think piracy will relate in 2 points of what we spoke about. Piracy itself, what happened around the Horn of Africa, and lately when the Israeli-Palestinian conflict gone in Gaza Strip, of course, the Houthis in Yemen, they attacked a ship and seized the ship that they thought it is owned by an Israeli businessman. So here we can differentiate between two terms, piracy and maritime terrorism. I think that what happened in Yemen lately was some sort of maritime terrorism. Why? Because pirates and maritime terrorists both use force. However, it is the end goal is different. Maritime terrorism has a political end goal. However, pirates only do it for money. You know, we has
For
the ship,
ransom,
we has the crew.
yeah.
Yes, pay us the ransom and take them and go.
Uh,
Okay. I don't have a lot about piracy, but of course it can, affect national security in for all the countries in the Red Sea basin, not only Egypt, and it can affect, the traffic of the Suez Canal in a way, and geopolitically, the Bab el Mandeb Strait, it add more and more to its geopolitical significance. And countries like Yemen and Somalia on both sides would have a lot to do with it. And there is an international presence of naval missions with the UN and with the EU that, each time they elect a new leadership from the countries in the region. It was Saudis once, and it was Egyptian once, and it was American once, and I guess Russian at one time, and at one time uh, it were Chinese. And China, for the first time, to send its fleets out of its own borders, maritime borders, it sent its fleets to fight piracy. Because, of course, this part of the Indian Ocean are crucial part for the upcoming and the going trade for their initiatives like the Belt and Road Initiative, and for their, and especially that China is mainly exporting to the whole world. So I think that's how the situation can, shift from being a geopolitical crisis into a geo-economical one that can affect the whole world.
Yes. Speaking about China, how familiar you are with the rise of BRICS? Is Egypt going to join BRICS?
Yes, definitely.
So
Of course,
what
Egypt.
benefits
Mm,
Egypt expects from joining BRICS?
okay, let me here clarify one thing. When they initially wanted to make the BRICS organization, they invited Egypt as one of the major countries that achieved, the highest growth rate in economically. So Egypt was invited initially, but we were occupied with many things on the ground that led us to 2011, the Arab
Arab
Spring.
Spring, yeah.
So we were a bit late to join BRICS. In Egypt, Egypt was a bit late to join BRICS. I think that Egypt would like to benefit more because, of course, BRICS economically has, like massive economics together from Brazil to Russia and India and China. And when we look about India and China, they had a geopolitical rivalry uh, much larger because they are much larger countries than Egypt and Turkey.
Yeah,
And of course,
they also have some border disputes and stuff like that.
exactly,
But
exactly.
economy is a stronger argument,
Yes,
obviously.
exactly. And I quote, I used to work for, I worked with multiple think tanks. I was keen not to mention them because, I'm here to say my own opinion, so I don't harm them. So I will quote one of my mentors, Dr. Said Ghanem. He's an ex-general from the Egyptian Armed Forces and also worked in the UN, just like you. And he has a PhD in international relations. He always say, if there is a political rivalry between two countries, however, we should look for the economic collaboration between both, like the state of Egypt and Turkey. It is still exporting and importing from each other. So we can reach easily a political settlement for the issue they have. However, if they go to war and they cut everything from each other, it is much harder to create communication to reach peace. So I agree with his point of view.
Do you agree that if, let's say, primarily United States would agree uh, together with China and Israel and Palestine, that would be the key solution, two states. I think I have feeling and I have also reliable information which says that if Palestine and Israel would have two states, they would be very good neighbors maybe in 10, 20 years, having in mind the let's say similarity in mentality and Israeli, Jewish people and Arabs are both Semitic uh,
Ethnically,
cultural circle. So even languages are more or less similar, you know, Salam alaikum, Shalom,
yes.
Elohim, very similar. But, do you think that would be actually the real long-lasting solution for that tragedy in Israel and Palestine?
Well, I would love it to happen this way. I would love it. I would love to have peace in such contest. However, the situation on the ground, have many complex situations where there is some things that both sides can't control. Now I will speak about, non-state actors inside the Palestinians, like, at the old days, uh, in the 90s. In the 90s, Yasser Arafat was the head of the PLO, and Sheikh Ahmed Yassin, who created Hamas, they were coordinating together. So they had a lot of strong ties and coordination together. So it was going this way. It was going, we had to hold our arms. We won't fire at the Israelis. We should defend ourselves and try to make the Oslo Accord work. On the other side, in the Israelis, they had people who go to build settlements into the Arab lands. So, I have here, to go down, not from the strategic point of view, but to go down to the individual. Can the individual Arab Palestinian be convinced that he can live in peace with an individual Israeli? If they embrace the far right ideology, this will never happen because they see it as a zero-sum game.
Yeah.
However, if more moderate people can go with high influence, so they can influence and control their own people, maybe this can change. However, we have to go back and see how you raise your child. Now, if my father fought and he raised me to hate the other side and that I will eventually fight them, I will be more pro-war. But if my father teach me and raised me that I should be more pro-peace and can only be ready to defend myself, I will be pro-peace. So the problem is with the individuals. Far-right people in Israel think from an Jewish religious point of view that this land is ours by God promise. Muslim radicals think that what you say is false and God will help us to kill you and to take the land. They are the same mentality. There is nothing different between them.
And I believe they understand each other much better than moderate people.
Of course.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, this is true.
You know what? I wish I could have as a guest in my podcast some very vocal, let's say, Zionist. This is what you actually described, that far right
Yeah.
Israel. I would like to talk to one of the very vocal Zionists, just to hear their arguments. And although I read so many books about all these things, and also I conducted a lot of research work, especially about anti-Semitism. So recently, I don't know if you are aware of the initiative in U.S. Congress. They want to actually make it equal. If you are anti-Zionist, you are anti-Semite. And this is ridiculous, especially in case of Arabs, which is the largest Semitic group in the world. It's about
Yes, exactly.
450 million Arabs, and they're all Semitic. You are
Yes.
Semitic, the same like Jewish. But if you hate radicals among Jewish people, which I hope they are in minority, then you are accused of anti-Semitism. That's totally weird, you know. People are making decisions, decision makers are making uninformed decisions, unfortunately.
Exactly. This is what happened because there is a big gap. There is a big gap between researchers, people of salts, and decision makers. And most people who can influence decision makers, political decision makers, are lobbyists. So, in the United States and in many countries, there is a lot of people who do lobbying. People who do lobbying for Israel, people who do lobbying for Saudi Arabia, and people who do lobbying maybe for China. There is a lot of people who do lobbying, and there is like public relations. It is like yes, public relations agencies, which is eventually a lobbying service. So you can hire them if you get enough money, and of course they affect a lot of people, and with a lot, especially in America. America, a country that has like a lot of independent media companies and news. So that's why maybe you can find more, more, a lot of more news, in the same country about each side of each conflict. It is uncontrollable, and I think this is what led to what happened in America during the Trump administration, to people to get rights and go to the Capitol. And of course, there's a lot of people in the Western Hemisphere who has like, less trust in the government. I can recommend one of my friends. I will tell you after we finish with this podcast. He's from the Western Hemisphere, not from the United States, and his opinions are quite different than usual. So maybe you would like to have an interview. And he has traveled to many countries more than I did. So I guess you can speak with him about Africa and about, you can, coordinate together. He
Okay,
has seen a
good.
lot in the world and
Thank you
had
very
a
much
lot
to
of,
this. I would gladly host your friend. It
sure,
would be definitely very interesting to talk because I also traveled a lot, within Europe, Asia, but unfortunately, I haven't been to Africa, but I hope I will go at least to visit Hurghada or something.
yes, I would love if you can come to Egypt so we can meet face to face.
Yeah. Okay. So it was very pleasant conversation with you. Uh, I hope we will have a meeting again sometimes. Uh,
Sure.
if you have any additional things to say, please uh, feel free uh, to share it with us. Maybe something
Well,
that I omitted to ask you, but it's something that you would like to speak up. Is there anything?
well, actually, I don't have, any more to add right now. Maybe in the future, if there is like an opportunity for you to host me again, and I'm glad that we can, have like a chance. Usually, when I write, I try to be objective as possible and to keep my opinions out of the picture. Here, I filter a leaf so I can speak with you in a friendly way and I can express myself. So I was glad for this opportunity. So I will thank you again. And right now I don't have or I can't think of anything to add more. And hopefully we would get a chance maybe to meet or through via online, or maybe in the future we can meet face to face. I think we can discuss more and get to know each other more.
Okay, thank you very
And
much.
until then, thank you very much. And until then, yeah, I wish you the best with your quest as a peacemaker.
Thank you.
Thank you very
So,
much.
so this was very interesting, and it's time to say goodbye. And
Yeah,
until next
like
time,
Andrea Bocelli says.
yeah, thank you. Bye.
Okay, thank you very much and goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye.